Are you talking about for Zoom?
Yeah, there's like an audio pass-through functioning thing called, well, as long as it sounds okay with you.
It does sound okay.
Okay, good.
Now, I always ask this: do you know who Winger is, and do you like them?
um, I know who Winger is. I bought this T-shirt as a bit of an ironic purchase because they were so over the top, and that song 17 in particular is just so egregiously horrible and awesome at the same time. So I used to ride around with it was the first trio I put together, cordless, just bass and drums, and we called ourselves the Magic Number, and we used to drive around and riff on stuff like that and listen. And so I bought this T-shirt as sort of an ironic tip of the hat, but I have to say, their guitar player, I think, is like one of the greatest guitar players of all time. And actually, in listening to more of their music, we came across these ballets that, like, Kip Winger has been
Yeah,
doing, right? Oh,
yeah,
you know more than
yeah.
me.
It's a shock. It's a shock. Like, yeah.
It's so heavy, yeah. And then after that, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm fully endorsing.
He has an awesome like Botox like regimen or something because he's still pretty as I guess almost a 60-year-old man. Like,
Yeah, he was just he was too pretty. He was born too pretty.
yeah, he definitely has a lot of stuff going on. Once in a while, I'll see people's shirts and I kind of quiz them. Like, there's no way that you know who AC/DC are. Like, I just want to know, like, why are they wearing these shirts? Like,
Yeah. No, I would never. I mean, I would never wear a band T-shirt or a musician T-shirt of somebody that I didn't know, because then I could be caught in a situation where I'm doing an interview and I don't know anything about it. That would be horrible.
yeah, we get a lot of people with Def Leppard shirts on, and they're like, I don't know who they are. I just like the shirt.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is wearing
it. Got it at American Apparel or whatever. No, Urban Outfitters. Yeah.
I just had a long conversation with a guy. He had a Rage Against the Machine. He goes, "You're the first person ever to tell me like that you really like that shirt." And I said, during the pandemic, I know I'm getting off way off the subject. I did Rage from album one all the way till it ended. Then I went to Fugazi album one to when it ended. Then I did a Danzig
Wow.
album went to it. I know it's like these are artists I wanted to dig into that I felt like I had a little more time to do it.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Fugazi was that Ian McKay's band, or no? I mean, I know he was with no, was that Fugazi?
yeah, yeah, punk rap. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They were more aggressive than Red Hot Chili Peppers could ever be.
Yeah. I used to listen to a lot of that stuff and knew some of it and didn't know some of it because I was really into skateboarding
Uh-huh.
in like the late 80s. My lovely wife is bringing me a cup of coffee.
That was one of my second question on the whole thing is that you're playing Mr. Mom, and then you go back on the road in October with Snarky Puppy.
Yeah. Starting up October 1st. I'm doing the first half of the tour. And then I'm off on the 16th. Working on some stuff. Whether or not I'm gonna stay over in Europe to do a couple of things is kind of up in the air. But after that, for sure, a week after that, I'm going to be going to Cairo, Egypt, where I've never been before, and I'm going to be playing acoustic duo with this incredible pianist from New York, Steve Sandberg. We have a duo, and we're playing the Cairo Jazz Fest and doing some stuff for the American University in Cairo, and that
Sounds awesome. Yeah, I just did an album with a guy who just did music all from Cairo.
really.
And then yeah, then I have Facebook friends that just went. And I was like, wow, like this has to be on my radar as something that I really want to go to and want to experience. It sounds like you're gonna have a blast. Like it seems like an adventure, yeah. Yeah.
I'm really excited. A friend of mine from back, I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, and the girl that played harp in our youth orchestra, she was real cool because like harps don't have a lot to do. So she was always reading, sitting in the back. And she works for the State Department. And she goes between that place and another place, they kind of shuttle them back and forth. But she was the connect to get us over there, and it sure worked.
Wow. I'm excited. I'm excited. Did you ever see Showgirls, the movie?
Is that the Paul Verhoeven? Wait, who's the director?
Oh, God, who was
Well,
the
that was
director?
the thing that was like the end of the career of what's her name?
Yeah, the girl from Saved by the Bell.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So it's a joke, but because Snarky Puppy is just such a crowded field, do you ever feel like taking a ball of marbles and just throwing them on the ground to see if you can knock some of those people out?
No, no, I don't. That's funny though. Um, you know, man, so this last tour, I was out like legitimately on tour for 8 weeks at the end of the spring, but then also before that for 2 weeks at the GroundUp Fest. So I was with Snarky, and then I'm adding another week in there because I got COVID. So then I was still away from my family, kind of quarantined. But so 11 weeks, which is the longest run of anything I've ever done in my life. And I love all of those guys in the band, like more instead of less, and even after all these years, I started playing with them back in 2007. I think I found the first email exchange that I had between me and Mike was, I think, in 2006 maybe. And so I came down to Dallas and overdubbed some stuff on I don't know if it was their third record, I think, called Bring Us the Bright. First, or it was the second or third, and it was the first one that Bill Lawrence from London played on as well. And I played the solo on his song 34 Klezmer that we still play occasionally. And so going all the way back that far, it's been a relatively stable cast of musicians. There were some changes farther back, but definitely in the past, 8 years, it's been really, really solid. And I mean, one of the things that, I mean, it would be great to play with them all the time, but there is also the danger of putting all of one's eggs in one basket.
Yes.
So
Jazz artists don't do that.
right.
Jazz artists don't do that. They just don't do that.
Exactly, especially. And so it's nice. I mean, it sucks when the tour is over because then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna take a big downgrade and probably pay and type of venues, but that doesn't make the exchange of energy between the audience any less. And of course, I love playing clubs and small clubs and jazz clubs as well. And I was just going to say that having that kind of almost sports team level roster in a band does give everybody who wants to have a solo project or who had one before they joined the band time to still work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, you guys are a well-oiled machine, kind of like the band Plus or something. Like you guys, things have been in motion for a while where, it's just like we understand how this works and we're able to deviate from that and come back and do our thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back into your Wikipedia. Just you had a really bad accident. I had an accident, not like yours though.
Yeah.
And I always believe that you don't fully recover from that. Like there's always something that never got fully repaired.
Yeah.
I was surprised that did you do skateboard before the accident or after?
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
okay, yeah. I was kind of like, do you feel like there's some aches and pains or stuff that
Oh,
you experience now? Yeah, I thought so.
yeah, I still have a titanium rod in my femur. My kneecap was broken into 8 pieces,
Wow.
and then kind of wired back together. And my tibia and fibula were both broken, and my orbital socket here was also broken. And but that was pretty minimal. That was like a hairline crack. But yeah, I don't have full range of motion. like I once did. So that kind of, took me off the skateboard ramp, unfortunately, or fortunately, because maybe, that was a good thing, because I managed to never, break my hand or my collarbone or my wrist.
Yeah.
I had some other, pretty good slams, but fortunately nothing that ever affected me in like the neck and the back and the shoulders and hands. Um, but yeah, I still feel it. I was feeling it. I felt it a lot more. I think I was in a lot more sort of just chronic discomfort or pain in my 20s. And so whenever people are talking about the glory days and, oh man, I wish I was 25 again. For me, I was like, 25 was horrible for me.
You're still
I'm I'm
recovering.
I'm much happier with things, with never revisiting my 20s. Had I not been in that accident, maybe it would be different. But yeah.
I went on your website. You have really reasonable rates for classes, and then you had that in class, like I will meet you in person. That freaked me out a little. So it made me think. I'm like, have you ever met someone who was just like a psycho fan who just wanted to hang out with you for an hour?
I've met some kind of potentially psycho folks along the way. Never from that, because if I had, that would not be up on my site. I think that some of the stuff that's up on my site, honestly, is a coming out of the full pandemic lockdown, and just at a certain point, just reaching a certain point of, I guess you could say, financial desperation.
Yeah.
Uh, I have to say that after the tour, um, in the spring, I had a lot of time to think about things, uh, not running around sort of multitasking like I do in my normal jazz life, and what I'm going to be doing actually moving forward, I still teach occasionally privately, but it's really hard. I'm sure, all musicians out there that are, that might check this out, well, it's like, it's really hard to make it financially doable, because it's just, it's too hard to, you can't really charge what you need to charge an hour to make
Yeah.
a living. So it's either you charge some exorbitant amount of money that no one will ever be able to pay, or you try to have 80 students a week, which is also like, game over for anything else. So what I'm going to be doing is concentrating on releasing a few master classes every year, occasionally opening up a little thing. I mean, I still teach master classes out on the road. That's a classic jazz guy move, and sometimes we do that in Snarky. And any tour that I set of my own stuff, I always try to set up at least one master class at a school, because that always ends up paying like 3 times more than the club rate or whatever. So I love doing that, but it's gonna have to. I'm kind of focusing in on some stuff, because I'm starting to work on the next record, and actually a couple of different projects looking out over next year, and realizing how little time I have, again, suddenly. So I'm trying to, you know,
You need another pandemic so you can
yeah,
get
I know.
back.
I know. And hey, I mean, I sure hope it doesn't happen, but we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I was just the same way. I'm like, I'm telling my friends, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I got too much to do and not enough time. And I never haven't felt that way in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're like, well, what do you need to do? And I'm like, I need this, and this. They're like, well, okay, well, I'll talk to you later. Like I was hoping they would help me out. It's like when I listen to this album, Dirty Minds.
Yeah.
It feels like you have such an opportunity to do this live, and you sell the drama. And I don't know if you'll understand this term, but Damien Escobar, I saw him at Capitol Jazz Festival. He had his music for it was smooth jazz, but he was selling the drama out of it, and he was just ripping around and becoming emotionally connected to the audience by his visual, and that's how I
Oh,
call it. This album slams in so many parts that I'm like, you could totally sell that drama. Like the first couple tracks are really kind of have that rock winger, appeal.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Do you
Yeah.
feel? Do you ever feel like you're like, I got to sell the drama out of this shit?
Well, I mean, I think that uh, uh, I think about Jimi Hendrix, and I think about Jimi Hendrix more than I think about Kip Winger, just because
Surprisingly.
yeah, I've never worn tights, and I'm definitely not that flexible, so I can't do any of the overhead kicks. Um, I could lick my violin, but I don't think that would do much for it or me or anybody else. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think that with the music in Dirty Minds and the way I decided to just make the record the way that it was is I wanted it to kind of be like it would be if you heard it, I mean, obviously I could have truncated things, and a lot.
Yeah.
And I just sort of decided not to. I mean, the album also had just sort of a very strange back burner type thing. It just almost didn't get done like 5 times, and I just kept having to come back to this and just like pull its body over the finish line. But I really love it, just in a way that it's part of my family, and the emotions that I put into this, I felt were very they were very true. The music was coming from feelings and then into ideas, rather than, okay, I'm going to have this idea where I'm going to do a song that's in 11 and then it's going to have this thing. Like, all these songs had stories to me, and they have, they don't really have secret lyrics, but they all have stories.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff came together going out on long walks and just trying to hear where the song wanted to go, as opposed to sitting down and like banging my head against the piano, or like doing 15 million versions of the bridge. I did a little bit of that, of course, obviously. But anyway, back to your question of, could it, would I ever be compelled to a more dramatic presentation? I mean, I, I wouldn't, you'll never see any sort of like Lindsey Sterling stuff out of me. But the other thing that I was thinking about in this record, and I know it came out very far from what it is, but my hero, I mean, I have many violin heroes from different types of music and different eras, but the person that always comes back, I'll go away from him and then I'll come back and go and I'll get into somebody else for a while and then I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jean-Luc Ponty for me.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's so wild to me about his influence and what he did with the violin in music is that, number one, until I started really reinvestigating his stuff, because I used to just check his stuff out for licks or whatever, I wasn't really thinking about any artistic thing. In fact, I just wanted to hear bebop and other stuff, and at the time I actually didn't even really like the music so much. I liked the violin playing, but I didn't like the music. It wasn't something I was going to put on a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I've come around to that. And one of the things that made a big impact on me was realizing that even all of these other weird early records, which I loved, even the one up to Zappa, and when he came over and was playing with Zappa and George Duke and all that. But from 1970, he put out a record every year from 75 to 81, and 2 years in that he put out 2 records.
Mm-hmm.
And the second year that he was on Atlantic, he put out 2 records, and it wasn't like he was doing one and then a live one. It was 2 full studio records, and then he took a break, changed record companies, and then put out a record a year again until like 1990 or 91 or 2 or something like that. So to have that kind of creative output as instrumental music, no lyrics, no nothing, of just like weirdo violin, coming out of bebop, going across, you know, whatever you want to call it, jazz rock, prog rock, fusion, you know, and all that stuff. He just kept creating. And so I guess as a result, also, everybody has a different entry point for Jean-Luc, you know, and I'm telling this long story just to say that also thinking about the staging of this music on Dirty Minds, I was very much thinking of, I mean, the instrumentation and everything, I was very much thinking of Jean-Luc's, you know, Atlantic Years band, you know, keyboard with, you know, a bunch of different keys and, you know, maybe even a piano in there, guitar player, bass, drums, and, you know, going, you know, seeing all the things I could see on YouTube and everything like that of that. I've seen him live, you know, several times too, but not from that era. So I don't know. That's about as far as, you know, I might wear a sparkly shirt is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying it as a negative. I'm
No,
just saying that I'm just saying, like,
no.
I'm saying the music is jamming, that it just goes together. You just can't stand there. Just like you have to work that crowd into a frenzy.
Thanks, man.
We're gonna go.
Yeah.
You understand. We're gonna go into the album a little more. When I think of Dirty Minds, I only think of the Prince album song. So the difference between this is just really the Z at the end. I know that I'm older, so I'll always like go, oh, Dirty Mind, that's Prince. Like that is Prince. So it's interesting how you pick that song. What I loved about this, other than the song itself, and we're going to play a sample, is the video that you created with this is mind blowing. And I'll tell you why. One, if you're like if you really want to see how things are made, like you're able to see how you guys are actually like working together as a unit, and you're like, oh, that's how they're making that sound. Then you have this awesome like background. It looks like a church of something. And then if you're a techie, you know, if you really are into tech gear, there's stuff all over the place. That it's like Candyland. It's all over for you to take a look at. A long time ago, I did a interview with Roosevelt Collier, and he did a video similar to that. And I never saw like a slide guitar, you know, looking down on it. I only could see that he was playing it, and that was with Mike too, and the band. And it was just so like mind blowing. Once you see how it's made, it kind of changes how you interpret the song.
That's so great to hear. My wife, Erin, who just came up the stairs at the beginning with the coffee, is the person who made that video. She's a filmmaker, and we had all this footage from the you know, from the sessions, and then, you know, we cut in some other stuff, you know, for the fun of it. But she's the one who puts that together. One of the many things that I love about working with her and in video and music is that she's, you know, she's a musician. She wouldn't say that she's a musician, but yeah, she plays piano and flute, and she was also a really serious dancer back when we lived in Chicago. But rhythm and the editing is it's so key. I mean, it like in any music video, the edits have to be with the groove if there's a groove in the song. Otherwise, and it's like the second that I see something that you can tell that somebody put it together because they're like, no, but this is cool because of that, but they're just not listening to the music. So, you know, there's many decisions that she had to make where she wanted to do something else, but she was constrained by the music first. And I felt like, you know, what she created really had that, you know, kind of head bumping kind of a thing. I would hope. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And yeah, that church, Dreamland, that was probably the same thing. I mean, that's where Bocante recorded with Roosevelt. So it, you know, could have, I don't know if it was a different place, you know, the where the video that you're talking about, but that's the studio that is now run by Jerry Murata, the drummer, played with Peter Gabriel and the Indigo Girls, and, you know, so many people, and
superstar.
yeah, totally, yeah, kind of up near Woodstock. I think it's like Hurley, New York, or something like that. It's like, It's just this old church from the late 1800s or early 20th century. I'm not sure.
It's very cool. Yeah,
Really?
the comments on because I'm a comment guy. I don't like them on my product. I don't like unless they're good. But everyone who like watched the video, they were all commenting how well it was, and they felt the same way that I did. They felt that it was a great connection to the music and the visuals. It kind of like stamped together.
Ah, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, your country church to me is just like a because we're gonna play a little of that is like your bluesy song when it has a really nice keyboard break and in the middle, and then it kind of expands again.
Yeah.
But I don't think you were meant out to do like this is the blues song. It kind of went that way.
That was the first song that I wrote. I wrote that song almost a year before I wrote any of the other songs. And I'd actually even played it with a few of my jazz groups, sort of trying out, some different things. I was moving in this direction where I was wanting to approach this different sound, which to me was like, yeah, I mean, Ponte, but not just that, but just sort of everything on the American airwaves, from like the early or mid 70s to, the early 80s. All of those epic guitar bands and epic keyboard bands. And I don't know, I mean, that song had like several different titles, and I finally just gave it that title as sort of an homage to where we did the recording at Dreamland, because when Eric started, the way that he approached the drums, especially on that tune, and the vibe, actually that song, there was so much that we cut out there. I think that there was, in like the master take of what we did, I think that there was like 3 more minutes of just grooving. Like Eric just was just going. It was very hypnotic. And I remember we did track that one on the first night once we got everything set up. So it was at night. It was kind of freezing in the church. It was very cold. There were candles and stuff like that. Everybody was tired, and we are just trying to get into the vibe of the record. And yeah, that's what happens. And also a little nerd out thing is this is the only song that I've ever specifically written a quarter tone, like a note in between notes.
Uh-huh.
And it happens at the part ba da 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 ba da 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 da, like that part. I'm probably singing it in the wrong key, but whenever it comes down, I was like, I need this rhythm to be like this. I need an extra note, but coming from here, and I tried starting higher. I was like, no, that's not it. I was like, shit, why don't I just put a note? Why don't I just do a quarter tone? So all of you Jacob Collier fans out there, can pick the quarter tone out.
All right, I'm gonna try to find that song and see if we can play that too. Now, who we are. Okay, in my mind, the last 3 minutes is like the outro of Layla. It has that swirling like jam vibe to it that is like intoxicating. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah.
Thank you. That song, I feel like my eyes well up with tears, not because I think it's great, but because it just came from a strong feeling about my daughters, who were identical twins. And the idea of that song was, let's see if I can not cry in the interview, just basically, when Aaron and I became parents, we had ideas about identity, where that comes from. I was very much at the time, up until that time in my life, a nurture versus nature. I was like, oh no, it's just, it's how you raise people. It's it's the family unit. It's the values and how you demonstrate life. I was all into that. And it wasn't until they were born and I met them that I had to realize that that is all has a big impact, but we also all come into this world with something else that is not imprinted from behavioral observation. I believe this. I mean, I feel like I saw it from the get-go. I mean, from, they were twins, and so they were a little bit premature, so they were in the NICU for a couple of weeks before we had even taken them home, seeing their different personalities and observing that. And then also on top of that, as they're getting older, realizing that I'm just constantly having to figure out, like, meet these new people, because they are who they are. But I think that, I understand how, I mean, I know there's no way of protecting myself from the wrath of the teenage years or anything like that. But I do remember that feeling of trying to assert your identity and not maybe having people, adults basically, who saw you as like, well, this is how you are, not realizing how quickly you were changing. So anyway, all of that's kind of going into that song, which is like kind of the most just simple song of the things. But that chorus is all about them. They're singing that chorus in my mind.
Oh, wow. Okay. That makes sense. I tell people this is a multiple listen. This is something that is where I see we're kind of running out of time. I got like 7 minutes left. This is a multi-listen for people.
Shorter.
No, that's okay. This is such a great interview. If you don't mind, I'll post it on the site. If you don't, I think that your fans would love to, to hear you talk about it, because I'm going to chop it and turn this into like a 15-minute thing. So yeah, so they get a little more. But I say it's a multi-listen for people. It obviously it's snarky-ish, and it's very jammy, but it's very controlled at the same time. Initially, I was like, wow, this has a Circus du Soleil vibe to it. It has a level of theater attached to it. And I think that maybe when you get older, you need to pitch your ideas to them, because I think you could do a great show as, produced by you. This was like something on the side. It's like, this is my music. You can do your acrobatics, to it.
Whoa, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I see that in your future, because I was like, this has some kind of elements that I can see that you could take over.
That sounds like a good gig,
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's like 20 shows running at the same time.
Yeah.
If you could at least do one show, it keeps them playing every single day for 2 times a day. So it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to recap, okay, the album is called Dirty Minds. It's with a Z, and we're talking to Zach Brock, and it's coming. It was June the 3rd, right?
I can't believe it. Yeah.
It's June the 3rd. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, we've been talking before that, and we were talking before that. We just never got a chance to connect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got your album the first day. I was like, okay, I want to talk to you, and then 2.5 months later, we're talking.
It was a little strange having my record come out that had been truly the most intense labor of love that I've experienced so far, musically, artistically, creative, whatever you want to call it. But it was a little weird having that come out in the middle of the Snarky Puppy tour, as we were opening for Steely Dan. It was sort of like, okay, Zach's got a record, so what? By the way, we're playing with Steely Dan tonight.
Yeah.
Sort of. I'm sure that there was a lot of excitement that I didn't quite get out there. So I'm hoping that it can be a little bit of a slow burn, just kind of getting it out there to people. And I really appreciate you, talking to me about it, because I do want people to hear it.
Great, and we'll get it out to the world here. We'll get it started. Zach Brock, thank you for joining me today on Something Came from Baltimore.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Just got someone walking in my door while I finished that. Alrighty, I got it's great. I'm gonna stop recording, and we are going